Daniel the prophet was given some of the most amazing end-time visions. The most detailed of all his prophecies, however, is Daniel's great final vision in Daniel chapters 10 through 12. Is this the prophecy Satan feared so much he tried to keep it secret? And if he did, isn't it one we should study carefully? Now, this video is part of an entire series on all the prophecies in Daniel. When you see the banner appear, you can click on it to be taken to a site where all the videos appear. And at the end of this video, there will be an end screen at the very end that will also take you to that playlist so you can catch up on any videos you may have missed. Why did Satan fear this last prophecy? What secrets does it contain that Satan did not want them to be known? And how did Satan try to keep this final vision from being released to Daniel? This video will describe one of the greatest examples of spiritual warfare in the entire Bible. This vision wasn't Daniel's first rodeo. In total, Daniel interpreted 2 dreams of King Nebuchadnezzar, interpreted the writing on the wall in King Belshazzar's banquet hall, and experienced 4 of his own visions in Daniel 7, 8, 9, and then this final vision in 10 through 12. These last 4 prophetic visions occurred over a period of 17 years. When Daniel received his first vision about the 4 beasts, he was confused about what it meant, and his thoughts alarmed him, but he kept it to himself. When he received the second vision about the ram and goat, he became ill for days. This time he tried to share the vision, but no one he talked to could make him understand what it meant. Then 13 years went past. But during that time, the fortunes of Israel had changed. The 70 years of exile were about to be completed, and the Jews were about to return to Jerusalem. Daniel fell to his knees and asked God's forgiveness for his nation. In response, God gave him the prophecy of the 77s. Finally, as Daniel chapter 10 opens, Cyrus has made his decree and allowed Israel to return to Jerusalem, and many of the captives have done so. Daniel, however, has stayed behind, and he lets us know that he had been mourning and seeking the Lord for 3 weeks. In those days, I, Daniel, had been mourning for an entire 3 weeks. I did not eat any tasty food, nor did meat or wine enter my mouth, nor did I use any ointment at all until the entire 3 weeks were completed. Later in the chapter, we learn the reason for this fast from tasty food. Do not be afraid, Daniel, for from the first day that you set your heart on understanding this, and on humbling yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to your words. So Daniel was fasting and seeking God for understanding. An understanding that Daniel had longed for 18 years was finally granted to him. A message was revealed to Daniel, who was named Belteshazzar, and the message was true and one of great conflict, but he understood the message and had an understanding of the vision. We're going to find out in just a little bit that Satan went to extreme lengths to try and prevent Daniel from getting this message. And now we know one of the reasons why. This was the capstone vision of all of Daniel's other 3 visions. It would explain the others and help Daniel and us understand. And Daniel's prophecies formed the basis for much of Revelation, so a great deal of our end-time information hinged on this one prophecy getting through to Daniel. Now, after Daniel's fast was completed, he was walking with some contemporaries when he saw Jesus in a pre-incarnate Old Testament appearance. We know it was Jesus because this is the same appearance John described in Revelation. Daniel saw him dressed in linen. John saw him in a robe. Daniel saw his waist girded with gold. John saw him with a golden sash. Daniel saw his body like beryl. John like jasper and sardis. Daniel saw his face like lightning, and John saw his face like the sun. Daniel saw his eyes like flaming torches. John saw his eyes like fire. Daniel saw his feet like burnished bronze, and John, he saw them like metal glowing in a furnace. Daniel heard the voice of the Lord like a tumult, and John like the sound of many waters. Can there be any doubt but that these visions were both of the same person? And since John identified this vision as Jesus, that's who Daniel saw as well. But only Daniel saw it back in his day. His friends who were with him were filled with dread and ran away. This is the same as Paul on the road to Damascus. When he saw Jesus, his compatriots were also filled with fear and did not see the Lord. Daniel did what any red-blooded American would do. He fainted dead away. In fact, Daniel records that Jesus spoke to him, but we don't know exactly what Jesus said. It is then that the veil between the spiritual realm and the physical realm is drawn back, if only for a moment, to allow us to view the spiritual struggle that had been occurring while Daniel was praying. It was then an angel wakened Daniel, and what the angel said was incredible. "Do not be afraid, Daniel, for from the first day that you set your heart on understanding this and on humbling yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to your words. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia was withstanding me for 21 days. The messenger angel tells us he was being withheld by someone known as the Prince of Persia. Now, no human could hold back an angel sent by God for 21 days. What we are seeing here is a supernatural struggle between good and bad angels. The fallen angel, the Prince of Persia, was trying to stop Daniel from getting this prophecy. But the archangel Michael came to the rescue of this messenger angel, and he then was able to get his message to Daniel. The fallen angel is given a most instructive name. He is called the Prince of the Kingdom of Persia. In the Hebrew, the word translated prince is sar, which is primarily a term applied to angels, meaning captain or commander or general. In the Septuagint Greek Old Testament, the word is archon, which is translated ruler, and it's where we get the word archangel from. Here are some other angelic references that use that word archon in the New Testament. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, archon, against the powers, against the world forces of this darkness, against the spiritual forces of wickedness in heavenly places. Ephesians 6:12. But the Pharisees were saying he casts out the demons by the ruler, archon of the demons. Matthew 9:34. Both passages use this term, archon. These passages imply a hierarchy of demonic powers. The evil angel in Daniel 10 is one of these ruler angels, and it appears he's in charge of the nation of Persia. Does Satan assign demonic angels to rule the nations? It appears he does. Later in the passage, we learn that after the archon of Persia, the archon of Greece will arise. This passage in Daniel 10 also implies a hierarchy of heavenly angels. Michael is dispatched to help the messenger angel, and he is described as one of the archon of the holy angels, those that didn't fall in Satan's rebellion. Later, in verse 21, we learn Michael is the archon of the Jewish nation, Israel. Because he is listed as only one of the rulers, the passage implies there are more rulers like him. Perhaps the sheep nations of Matthew 25:31 have holy rulers, and the goat nations have demonic rulers. We don't know. It is not explained to us. Or maybe all the nations have both, a demonic ruler and an angelic ruler. Do the United States, Australia, Britain, South Africa, etc., do they all have archon angels? I think that may be possible, if not likely. A question that came to my mind, and probably has come to yours, is how does Satan have the authority to assign demons in charge of nations? An interchange between Jesus and Satan in Luke provides a fascinating insight. he, Satan, led him, Christ, up and showed him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time. And the devil said to him, I will give you all this domain and its glory, for it has been handed over to me, and I give it to whomever I wish. Therefore, if you worship me, it shall be yours. Jesus answered him, it is written, you shall worship the Lord your God and serve him only. We can see from this passage that the earthly domain and its earthly glory has been handed over to Satan for the time being, and he can give it to whatever human he wishes. In this interchange, he tempts Jesus with the kingdoms of the world. Jesus refused his demand for worship, but someday Satan will give this domain to the Antichrist. The Antichrist will be willing to meet Satan's demand and bow down to him. This earthly domain was originally Adam's in the garden, but Satan stole it from him in the fall. Satan said, it has been handed over to me. Satan then became the ruler, archon, of this world. John 14:30. It is believed by many scholars, myself included, that the scroll with 7 seals in Revelation is the title deed to the earth, which Jesus shall open during the 70th week of Daniel, or as some call it, the tribulation. After this event, Jesus and the saints will rule the earth. But the court will sit in judgment, and his dominion, that's the Antichrist, will be taken away, annihilated, and destroyed forever. Then the sovereignty, the dominion, the greatness of all the kingdoms under the whole of heaven will be given to the people of the saints of the highest one. His kingdom will be an everlasting kingdom. This concept is very poorly understood in the church today. Many Christians believe Jesus is ruling the earth right now. If you believe this also, please answer this question. Why do we experience all the wickedness and pain that we do here on earth if Jesus is ruling? Jesus is seated on a throne. That is correct, but it is his Father's throne, and he will remain seated there until all his enemies are ready to be subdued. The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool for your feet. Psalm 110:1. The dominion of the earth still awaits Jesus to be proclaimed king and to sit upon his own throne on the earth. This doesn't happen until after the 7th trumpet in Revelation 11:16. Then the 7th angel sounded, and there were loud voices in heaven saying, the kingdom of this world has become the kingdom of our Lord and of his Christ, and he will reign forever and ever. This event that takes place after the 7th trumpet is the same event that is pictured in Daniel 7:13-14. I kept looking in the night visions, and behold, with the clouds of heaven, one like a son of man was coming, and he came up to the Ancient of Days and was presented before him, and to him was given dominion, glory, and a kingdom. And all the peoples, nations, and men of every language might serve him. So why do many Christians believe that Jesus is ruling the earth now? Well, because Jesus did defeat Satan and his fallen angels at the cross. Let's look at Colossians 2:13-15. He made you alive together with him, having forgiven us all our transgressions, having canceled out the certificate of debt consisting of decrees against us, which was hostile to us. And he has taken it out of the way, having nailed it to the cross. When he had disarmed the rulers and authorities, he made a public display of them, having triumphed over them through him. But that triumph was in regard to the canceling of the certificate of debt which was held over our heads. What we owed for our sins, Jesus defeated. He defeated the law of sin and death. But the dominion of the earth, that still awaits. This is a key understanding. So although Jesus will rule the earth in the near future, Satan is still ruling and assigning his demon rulers to the nations. It was these demons who tried to stop the messenger angel from bringing this prophecy to Daniel. But when he finally was able to escape and get through, the messenger angel said to Daniel something that's super important. Now I have come to give you an understanding of what will happen to your people in the latter days, for the vision pertains to the days yet future. The term latter days is literally the end days in Hebrew, the final days. So this message is pertinent to today because it is still future to us. The messenger angel was fighting so that we could learn this message. The wicked angels also knew that God does nothing without first telling his prophets. So perhaps they thought they could keep this message from coming true if Daniel didn't hear it. So that was the nature of this spiritual battle. The messenger angel also brings up a very interesting book. He tells Daniel that what he is about to share comes from the book of truth. However, I will tell you what is inscribed in the writing of truth. Daniel 10:21. What is this book or writing of truth? It isn't the scriptures, because at this point in time, none of these events the angel was about to show Daniel had yet been recorded. These were new prophetic events. So the book of truth must refer to a heavenly edict of what will happen. Psalm 139:16 seems to also refer to this book. Your eyes have seen my unformed substance, and in your book were all written the days that were ordained for me, when as yet there was not one of them. This should encourage us that God has a plan. No matter what transpires between us and the finality of that plan, God is in control. What we do know is the message the angel brought to Daniel is one that Satan feared enough to try and prevent its delivery. It is also one that may be further explanation of Daniel's previous visions that caused him confusion. It may be a key to understanding the book of Daniel. We learn at the beginning of this section that Daniel understood both the message and the vision after he heard it. So obviously, it answered his questions about the previous visions. And when one imagines the invisible war pictured in this chapter, Daniel's 21-day prayer and fasting becomes even more poignant. Was it his prayer that unlocked the prophecy? Remember, our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the powers, against the world forces of darkness, against the spiritual forces of wickedness in heavenly places. Pray at all times in the Spirit, and with this in view. Ephesians 6:12 and 18. With everything going on in our world right now, doesn't it make sense to be earnest in prayer and fasting for wisdom? This also prompts us to be patient for answers to those prayers. If the messenger angel needed Michael's assistance to get to Daniel, we need to realize the lesser issues facing us may be delayed as well by spiritual forces of darkness. But the prayers will be answered. So next time, we will explore this prophecy, the one that answered Daniel's questions, the one that Satan feared and tried to stop.